All right.
Okay. So well, a couple of minutes early.
Was there a few more roll through?
Who have we got? We've got a few people on there already.
23 all up.
Yep.
A few regular faces.
Excellent. Well, happy World Cocktail Day, everybody. It's quite an action-packed week. A few of you might know it's World Whisky Day on Saturday as well. Also Chartreuse Day.
Yeah, right. It's a busy old week, eh? Oh, it probably gives you something to do, though, really.
I know.
Yeah, all the days. Start making them up, no? Which day is Chartreuse Day?
Saturday. So it's World Whisky Day and Chartreuse Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's 1605, which is the year that the Carthusian monks apparently handed the recipe for Chartreuse.
Yeah, right. Well, there you go. I haven't had Chartreuse in a long time, so.
I always keep a bottle at home.
Yeah.
It's absolutely delicious in cocktails.
Yeah.
And works really well, actually. You should try a dash of that in your next Manhattan, Dave.
I think that's the problem with all these cocktail bars not open anymore. I find myself lost of those opportunities to have a glass of Chartreuse in my hand. You know, it's just Carlton Dry at home now. That's about it.
All right, I think we should get underway.
Go to Facebook now as well.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that should be us just about all set up now. First of all, welcome everybody to the third and I believe final installment.
For now, yeah.
For now, the trilogy episode of the Boutique Whisky Company virtual tasting series that we've been running with absolutely fantastic response from customers and guests alike over the past couple of weeks. I probably look a little bit different to the other Oak Barrel staff member that's hosted the first two. But for those of you that might not know me, my name's Joe Perry. I'm actually the wine buyer and educator here at the Oak Barrel. So we might have crossed paths at some point or another, but I've sort of taken the role of Scott Fitzsimons tonight. So basically the same thing, but my jokes aren't quite as good. That being said, I do welcome back both Simon McGorham to my right here, and also Dave Worthington as well, who I am convinced have already done a cracking job with the first two. So I am very pleased to have them here in these very capable hands. Simon, how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm going to kick things off before we hand over to Dave. So for those of you who haven't been on one of these before, Dave Worthington is our global boutique whiskey ambassador. Scott keeps on introducing me as a whiskey ambassador. I'm a former whiskey ambassador. I have gone to the dark side, but I still know how to make a cocktail, fortunately. And today, some of you might have already heard me mention, is World Cocktail Day. So on this day, in 1806, the word cocktail was first defined in print. And I've whipped up something for us to mark the occasion together. I've got a little New York Distilling Company Rye Manhattan, which I've pre-batched in this bottle here, which I'll pour for you in a sec. And I encourage you, if any of you are capable of mixing a little cocktail at home, to give one a go and settle down into this tasting. Manhattan's actually fairly simple. All you need is a couple of parts of whiskey, one part of sweet vermouth, dash of bitters. And in this case, we've added little secret ingredients that I know Dave likes to include in his Manhattans. I've added a little dash of Aberforth cherry brandy. So it's made from French VSOP, a little dash of XO cognac, sweet and sour cherries, and it goes amazingly in a Manhattan. So here we go. Pour us a couple of these.
So the cherry brandy is essentially subbing out the sweet vermouth.
I'm doing sweet vermouth as well,
Right.
but just a slightly richer take on a Manhattan with that cherry brandy. And I didn't have any maraschino or decent maraschino cherries at home. I don't know who does. So an orange twist. So that cherry brandy's replacing the cherry you might normally have in there. Just a little bit of orange peel. Just give that a twist. Throw that in the glass. No, you don't need a mixing glass or anything fancy to make these, really. I actually just added a little bit of water in there to account for dilution you get when you see a bartender mixing a mixing glass. And that just means it's not going to blow your head off when you go to take a swig of it. So let's a little cheers. So here's our cocktails here. Cheers, great to have you back at the tasting.
Cheers, I'll stick with my coffee at the moment.
Yep, cheers, Dave. Yum.
I did make a banging Manhattan last night, and bought some new glasses yesterday, and they came in. I got some gorgeous Nick and Nora glasses that have all been etched in. I think it's a 1930s style, sort of an Art Deco
Very
style.
nice.
Absolutely gorgeous, and yeah, that cherry brandy in it, that Aberforth cherry brandy, just a splash of it every time makes a huge difference to my Manhattans now.
I unfortunately didn't have a Nick and Nora, but I did bring some vintage cut crystal glasses. So I'm treating you, Joe, to those nice glasses.
I heard it makes
They look great.
The cherry brandy, why we bring that up is that's going to be a giveaway tonight. We are going to play a little game, probably about halfway through the tastings, called White Dog or Corn Dog. That's an American distillery themed game that Dave will take us through a bit later. And the winner of that will send you out this bottle of cherry brandy. I do also have some sticker books and boutique badges up for grabs as well for runners up, because I knew there was some close calls last time, a few disgruntled people who came in close second. All right, Dave, should we talk about some whiskey?
Let's do that. Are you ready? Are you driving this presentation that we're still sharing at the moment? Good morning, everyone. Good evening, even. Yeah, my name is Dave Worthington. I am the Global Brand Ambassador for That Boutique Whisky Company. It's an absolute privilege to be back in Australia again, third time, without leaving this little box in deepest mid-Bedfordshire. We're an independent bottler, as you're probably aware now. We do things a little bit differently. We came on the scene in 2012, and since 2012, we've gone on to create a huge portfolio of whiskies that we bottled. There are 95 established single malt distilleries in Scotland. To date, we've bottled 77 of them, I think. Although some of them we've not been able to name, and I think we've had one or two of them over the past couple of tastings where we brought out a teaspoon of malt. But it's not just about Scotch, it's about whiskey. We're just passionate about great whiskey. We've bottled whiskey from all over the world. England, Ireland, Scotland, obviously. But yeah, New World whiskies from, I think our latest New World whiskey is Israel. But we bottled whiskey from South Africa. We bottled single malts from India. We bottled single malts from Australia. We've only had a couple of Australians so far. They're just a couple of batches of Overeem a long time ago, and we're due some more. So yes, here we are. This is the whiskies that we're going to be tasting this evening. You want to go back to that one? Who's flicking the... I'm getting dizzy. This is our tasting order. I think we should start off with the Irish. Because it is just the perfect breakfast whiskey for me. It's certainly one of your 5 a day. It's a really tropical, as soon as I open that, tropical fruitiness. There's a little bit of sort of a bread yeastiness when I first opened that bottle, but then all the fruits are pouring out, and I am going to join you with this one. So what makes us unique boutique whiskey? We're all about quality rather than quantity. So you'll notice a lot.
I'm trying to keep up with you, Dave. Apologies.
I'm all over the show.
There we are, that page.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll head back into the whiskies in a minute. Yeah, it's all about quality, not quantity. So we're not into releasing huge batches or continuous liquid even. Although that said, we have recently, and there's one just behind me here, we have bottled some continuous liquid with our World Whiskey Blend, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. But generally everything is a small batch. What we've got here is an Irish, I've just got to get an Irish single malt. We're not allowed to name the distillery. This is, I think, what batch is this one? What have we got here? It's a 14-year-old. I can't see these.
Number 4.
It's batch 4, is it? It's a 14-year-old. Let me just find my present. Sorry about that. Yeah. I'll go straight into the whiskies there. So what it's a 4th batch, undisclosed, Irish distilleries, 14-year-old, just 2,116 bottles when we bottled it in half-litre bottles, 47.6% ABV. And if you know anything about Irish whiskey history, then you should be able to close down on the distilleries that this could come from. It is a single malt. So that rules out Ireland's largest distillery, the Middleton Distillery down in the New Middleton Distillery. They don't make any single malt there, and not any single malt on a commercial basis, that's for sure. The single malt that they do there will be all experimental still at the moment. In fact, even the experimental series that they have released, I know the single malts came from Bushmills, because they didn't make any single malt down there. So it's an all Irish whiskey, whether it comes from Ireland or Northern Ireland, is Irish whiskey. It all falls into the same categories. So for centuries, Ireland maintained supremacy. I mean, it really was, the best whiskey was Irish. Everyone wanted Irish whiskey. And it really only yielded to Scotland at the end of the 19th century for a number of reasons. There was a few real big reasons why Irish whiskey fell apart effectively. The first one was Aeneas Coffey invented or perfected the continuous still, or the patent still, and the Irish distillers were still hell-bent on making pot still whiskey, which is unique to Ireland. And so they dismissed it, and the column still was used in Ireland, but for grain whiskey, but it went over to Scotland, and Scotland picked up on the blending. The second big thing to hit Irish whiskey was the First World War, and then the War of Independence. So that was the other key reason. So when they went on their own, the Commonwealth, the British just shut off their market. Their 2 biggest markets at that time were Canada, and so the British just cut that off because you're not playing in our team anymore. And their second biggest market was America, and promptly after the First World War and then the independence, Prohibition came along and cut their markets off completely. So Irish whiskey was in a pretty bad way beginning of last century. And say by the 50s, it was on its knees. And by the late 70s, just 2 whiskey distilleries existed. Really was the Bushmills was in Northern Ireland, and down in the Middleton is the Dublin powerhouses sort of all worked together and created this New Middleton distillery. And it wasn't until 87 that a 3rd distillery came along. Today, there are about 30 distilleries in Ireland and lots of new stuff going on. You'll notice our label's a little bit stupid. I mean, if you've ever seen Father Ted, I mean, that's basically what happens. If you Google My Lovely Horse, and actually, if you click on that link, it should go to a YouTube video of My Lovely Horse. I don't know if that will come up, but yeah, it comes from a TV series. I didn't know anything about it because I missed it. It missed me completely. I was living in the Far East at the time when this came out. So, and I don't watch TV anyway, so it's not something I would have known, but I have Googled it and looked at it in the past, and it is quite funny. Some of the clips I've seen of it is really, really funny, but it was a bit of a cult TV series for people.
It's well worth going into a bit of a rabbit hole and searching My Lovely Horse. Perhaps once we finish this tasting, you'll wonder what you had seen. Sure.
Yeah, it is a bit crazy, but for someone I just never have time to sit down and watch TV. I never feel like I have time to sit down and watch TV, but so I don't. This is my yesterday was my 60th day in lockdown over here in the UK, so I haven't really been out of the house for 60 days. For work-wise, the last time I came back from work was the 13th of March, and I haven't been out of here apart from to pick up groceries, and I still haven't switched the television on yet. So as you notice, this one is just full of breakfast fruits. It's absolutely delicious. I love it as a breakfast whiskey. So when I first opened the bottle, it is what I call a breakfast whiskey. And it's very, very typical of a single malt from Northern Ireland to me.
That was actually a question from Alex. Ireland, not Northern Ireland. You might have given something away there, Dave.
Well, the all Irish whiskey. If you look at the Bushmills, although it's Northern Ireland, it's still Irish whiskey. It comes under it comes under Irish whiskey rules. So it is Irish whiskey, although it's a British whiskey rather than an Irish whiskey, but it is an Irish whiskey, if you know what I mean. But yeah, single malts. I'm not allowed to put Bushmills on the label. If there's anyone working for Bushmills, I didn't say that. But it is a Bushmills. Tell anyone. Yeah, it's definitely a Bushmills. But we have 3 Irish whiskey labels. Sorry, that's my doorbell going off. I'll just turn that off. We have 3 Irish whiskey labels, all of them for single malts. And there are only 2 distilleries at the moment that have stock aged enough to be single malts. So one is definitely Cooley. One of our labels definitely Cooley. You can see it quite quickly that it's a Cooley because we have that 3-2 optical illusion still on the label. I think the other 2 are definitely Bushmills, but they're just 2 different cask styles. So this is just bourbon, first fill and refill bourbon cask, and you can see that by the color and you can taste that by the fruits. But yeah, this is just such a beautiful, light and easy whiskey.
So from my understanding, Middleton have started making single malt now as well, right? Just obviously nothing that's sold.
Not commercially. No, I mean, there was when Irish Distillers, when it was all under Irish Distillers at the end of the 70s, it was all one company. And, we nearly lost Irish whiskey. If it wasn't for the French, Pernod Ricard going in and buying Irish Distillers and then telling Jameson basically that, we're not going to sell pot still whiskey around the world. You need to start blending whiskey like the Scots do. And that's really the birth of Jameson as an Irish whiskey around the globe as a blended Irish whiskey. So it really was the French who saved Irish whiskey. And then John Teeling, who's come in and opened the Cooley distillery in '87, the Cooley the Teeling family, John Teeling, the Teeling family have sort of ignited that rebirth of Irish whiskey. John Teeling's gone on to build a big distillery in Ireland as a sort of really as a commercial distillery supplying whiskey for all these new brands that are coming up. And then the 2 sons have opened the distillery in Dublin, the Teeling distillery in Dublin. So that's really the rebirth of Irish whiskey, and it's looking pretty strong at the moment. There's lots of really interesting stuff going on in Ireland.
You want to look at number 2 now, Dave?
Yeah, we mentioned earlier that we bottled a lot of the single malts of Scotland. I always go on about the 95 established single malt distilleries of Scotland, and that's everything older than Kilhoman. Kilhoman, 2005. There was another distillery opened in 2005, but they never spoke about whiskey for a long time, and that was the Daftmill distillery, a small farmyard distillery. And there are around 20 of those distilleries out of that 95 that really don't have their own brand. The Dufftown is one of them, although it does now. You might see Dufftown occasionally in the UK in the supermarkets, but really it's a big distillery that is still knocking out whiskies for blended Scotch whisky. Because still the world drinks blended Scotch whisky. 90% of the whisky made in Scotland goes towards blends, and just 10% as single malts. Because most people who love whisky just treat it as a drink, rather than people like me who treat it as a bit of a hobby, as a geek. But this is our fourth batch from the Dufftown distillery. It's a 10-year-old, 47.8%. Dufftown really is the heart of Speyside, I would say. It is a small saying that the small town of Dufftown was founded on 7 stills. 7 stills, 7 hills of Rome, 7 stills of Dufftown. And the first being Mortlach in 1823. Dufftown was the 6th in 1896. Do you know the original 7? 2 are closed. One in 31 and one in 85. Do you remember?
Actually, I think it might be a good opportunity for a quick little giveaway here, just to get your fingers on the buzzer. So 2 distilleries we're looking for, and I've got a sticker book and a boutique badge we'll send out to you if you know what those 2 closed distilleries from Dufftown are that were part of the original 7.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, something else we should. Sorry to interrupt. Something else we should point out that Scotty would have by this time is please note that the drams you are drinking today are 50 ml. So if you are planning on driving home from your couch, again, one of Scotty's jokes of recycled today. Please make sure that you serve yourself responsibly. Typically at these tastings, you only pour 10, 15 ml in the sample. I recommend it. Save this for a tasting or to share with someone else another night, or just have a great time
if you can resist it. Yeah.
Yeah, try and it's nice to go back to the whiskies, because things will change as you're eating and drinking, and different things will happen to the palate. So it's always good to get to the end and then go back to the beginning and see where they lie. There's a few people coming in with correct answers. The first one out, I see Johnny Edwards come out with one of the distilleries. Yeah, that one was closed in 85. And then James
Oliver McLeod
has got the 2. Yeah.
One closed in Convermore. Parkmore in 1931, Convermore 1985.
There,
want to make a note of that. We'll send that out to you, James.
It's a Dufftown. It's a huge distillery these days. The distillery lies on the southern edge of the town. We were supposed to be going there Spirit of Speyside last year. We had a meeting with one of the ambassadors there, and he said, you want to come around and look at my distillery? And I was really looking forward to going there, but things changed. And I was really looking forward to going up there a couple of weekends ago, but obviously everything's on lockdown here. When Alfred Bernard visited, he was so impressed by the beauty of this stretch of the Dulham, and I really just wanted to do it. It seemed such a pretty little walk up there alongside the river. As something I really wanted to do. But this distillery, I've never seen the distillery. I've not been to it. I wanted to get there last year. But you do see the whiskey out. I said this what do they call it? Something of Dufftown.
Singleton of Dufftown.
Singletons, that's it. Yeah.
We actually find that down in Australia. The Singleton we get in Australia is from Dufftown Distillery. So
you don't get the Glenore.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I even tried to visit the distillery and I was working for Diageo, and I turned up and it was shut for maintenance. Couldn't do a tour or anything. I was gutted. Bad timing.
Dufftown is one of those few distilleries whose spirit stills are larger than its wash stills, which means they have to do double wash distillates before they can put it in the spirit stills. And for many years, Dufftown was produced in the Bell's style because it was and still is a key malt into the Bell's blended Scotch whiskey, still a big seller. I mean, it was the #1 in the 70s, but obviously it's been slipping down. So it did make a malt heavy. The older Dufftown, I think the first Dufftown we ever bottled was a 40-year-old. It was too woody for me. It's far too woody for me. I mean, it had overwooded, but people loved it. And a 40-year-old Dufftown is pretty cool. I've got some here somewhere, but yeah, it's a little bit too woody. I mean, it was the colour of flat Coca-Cola. I mean, this is a 50-year-old heavily wooded. You just can't see through it. I'm not a huge fan of chewing pencils, so I don't like that sort of style. But recent years, the style has changed really for the blender's needs, because it's still 95% of this whiskey, maybe even a little bit more, goes into blended Scotch whiskey. It is one of those workhorse distilleries. Fermentation has been lengthened. The wort runs clear, which gives that lighter, grassier, fruitier new make. You get that fruity. I think this is another great little breakfast whiskey. The label here, you can actually see it on, well, you might be able to see it. It's on the back door here of my office. So it features a view out from between the two of Dufftown's spirit stills over a row of great big swimming pools that are lined with timber. They're sort of like vats. Like washbacks almost, because Dufftown, not only is it home to 6 distilleries still today, it's also home to Joseph Brown vats, and they're suppliers of the wooden washbacks to many of the distilleries in the area. So the label shows the distillery, these huge, great big vats. Along the back is various teams from HQ, basically, and every label changes. So if we flip back one, this is the first batch we did, the 40-year-old, and it's just a few of the teams. And as you can see more and more people go through there. Everyone is holding, either wearing or holding something that's idiosyncratic to them. So I am up there, right at the top in the middle with my banjo. Because I play the banjo badly. I play every instrument badly.
I spotted you straight away, Dave. Who else have we got up there on the big screen?
Oh, I'd have to zoom in. I mean, like, we had a big long list of everybody that was up there and who were holding different things. But unless you zoom right in, you can't see what they're holding or what they're doing. I'm pretty certain one was almost naked for a while, but yeah, there's one up there. I think he's going to swim, but they're all holding up different things. There was a big Google sheet where everyone had to put something what they wanted to be part of the label, something idiosyncratic to them. So there's someone playing a guitar on there, I think, and yeah, certainly me on a banjo. But yeah, I can't remember everybody who knows. Yeah. Can I, at the end of night's time, can you play us out on the banjo? Well, we'll be playing. I've got some stuff that I've played on the banjo coming a bit later. So yes, it's all recorded.
Is your banjo handy? Do you keep it in that room?
No, it's not handy. It's downstairs. I was thinking about bringing. There's a room there on the wall here that I can hang a uke up. So I'm thinking about hanging a uke up there.
Well, if we get you coming back to the oak barrel, it'll definitely have to be a banjo rendition, I feel, Dave.
Yeah, so Dufftown 10-year-old, it's another breakfast dram, to be honest. It's a light Speyside whiskey. I really love the Dufftowns that we've had recently. Certainly the younger ones, the 10s, the 16s, we've got 16 coming out as well. They've all been really, really good. I'm definitely a fan of chewing pencils. To HB or not HB? That is the question. Oh, very good. Can't
beat the 2B consistency we got there as well.
I mean, you're all showing your age there if you know what pencils are. Nobody knows what pencils are these days, surely.
Right.
There's nothing better than a whiskey and a coffee in the morning, I'm telling you.
Now, Dave, we went through the intro pretty quick tonight. I know there's a few people that have been on these stations before.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about where we source our whiskey from? How does an independent bottle like us exist? Where do we find our boutique goodness?
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, I'd love to tell you all about that. I was wondering, I did rush through it because I thought I'd get some whiskey in a glass. So just hang out with the Irish and the Dufftown for a little while I go into a little bit about boutique whiskey. Yeah, we were founded in 2012 because the company was passionate. The founders passionate about great whiskey, and they wanted their own independent bottling company. We get our whiskey from three sources: the distilleries themselves, which is not always easy in Scotland because most distilleries in Scotland are owned by multinationals, and most of them shut their doors to independent bottlers because there was a lot of garbage around at the early 2000s. They shut the doors because there was a lot of whiskey stocks lying around, and some not great independent bottlers thought it'd be great to turn this into cash and didn't know what they're doing. And they really bought some sort of bad reputations on certain distilleries. So big distilleries like Diageo shut the doors completely to independent bottlers. So that was a little bit more difficult for a lot of independent bottlers to get hold of the stocks. There are independent bottlers that will lay down new make spirit, and these old relationships were there for people like Douglas Lang, Gordon MacPhail, Cadden Heads. Those long relationships, they've been there for a long time. But for people like us coming in, it was a little bit more difficult. Scotch whisky is unique in the world as it was founded on the back of blended Scotch whisky. And to operate blended Scotch whisky properly, all distilleries need to share whisky. And so there are bonders in Scotland, bonds, independent brokers, and that's where we started getting a lot of our Scotch whisky from brokers, basically. And we've built up since we started, but before that, with the Atom team, have a long relationship in the whisky industry. And so we had a lot of friends there anyway that would help us find casks, and that's where we've got a lot of our Scotch whisky will be from brokers. And the other way we get it from was private collectors. So Scotch was on its knees in the late 80s. I mean, they would carry on producing whiskey, but then all of a sudden they had to cull distilleries rapidly. I think we lost something like 28 distilleries from early 80s, right up until 2010. I think the last one closed. And a lot of people brought casks. Certainly our old Springbank, Macallan, Highland Park has all come from private collectors, and certainly a lot of even some of our old grain, we have bought whiskey from private collectors. Basically, they'd sunk their savings into a cask and sat on it, and then we find them. So yeah, closed distilleries, grain distilleries, and single malts from private collectors. Today, that relationship has changed, and we're allowed to buy whiskey from certain distilleries now. And when we buy whiskies from distilleries, they dictate whether we can name it or not. So if we have to release whiskey unnamed, so the Irish whiskies that we bought that direct from the distilleries, but they have dictated we're not allowed to put their name on the label. Simple as that. That's the rules. We play by it, because if we started breaking the rules, that will cut our supply of whiskey, and we don't want that. When we're buying it from a broker, if the cask says Springbank on it, or if the cask says Macallan on it, we will name it. When we buy, anyone can go and buy whiskey from Glenfarclas. They're one of the few family businesses in Scotland. Anyone can go and buy whiskey from Glenfarclas. However, if you bottle it yourself, you'll never be able to call it Glenfarclas. They will bottle it for you and saying, this is Glenfarclas bottled for Dave Worthington, and it will come in the Glenfarclas bottle and it will be called a Glenfarclas. But if you buy that cask and decide to bottle it yourself, that's their rules. You can't name it. So we have that hidden under either a secret Speyside, or we had a secret distillery originally. And that is the rules. Today, lots of distilleries are coming to us, certainly the New World distilleries, because of the amount of awards that we've won. People obviously know that what we're doing, and because the markets we're in now across the world, we can put other countries' whiskies in markets that have never heard of us. I'll give you an example. We recently bottled some South African single malt. South African have been making whiskey since the 90s. Originally, it was pretty dire, I must admit. Certainly the reviews that I was seeing, and what they were doing there was putting new make spirit basically in the Scotch and calling it South African whiskey. Things have changed, obviously, very for the good. And they're making some bloody brilliant single malt whiskies. In fact, good blends out there as well. One distillery making all of this. And they still bring some Scotch into blends. But they do make a good single malt, but none of it leaves South Africa. The only whiskey that comes out of South Africa is their single grain, again, which is superb, Baines. But we put that single malt, our 6-year-old Three Ships whiskey, I think we were the first independent bottler to put it outside of South Africa. We put that into something like 13 markets for them. As in America, no one had heard of a South African whiskey in America, and we put it in China. So, that sort of thing, that's where we can get our people coming to us today, New World Whiskies wanting to come to us. So our last one was that Milk and Honey from Israel, just a 1-year-old.
Hopefully got a little bit of that coming to Australia, Dave.
What, the Milk and Honey?
Milk and Honey, yeah. I mean, it's the official bottling they've actually just released here, but the boutique Milk and Honey, I'm hoping to see in some form in Australia. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Just a 1-year-old.
1-year-old malt spirit. And that's going to be fun.
It's been finished in pomegranate wine casks.
Pomegranate wine casks. Yeah,
I've got some here somewhere. There's somewhere in the back. But you don't want to watch me drink it for breakfast. Or maybe you do.
Should we try another whiskey, Dave?
Let's do that.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's do that. The third one on my list is Auchroisk.
It's my favourite.
The one that everyone hates saying. I remember hating saying that as well, but it is Auchroisk. It's not as difficult. Auchroisk. It isn't Auchroisk. It's Auchroisk. It's our 7th batch from the Auchroisk distillery. It's a 12-year-old, a release of just 2,400 bottles, 47.9% ABV. So obviously this is not a single cask. As an independent bottler, we never say single cask. We've never said single cask. We've never said cask strength either. There are lots of independent bottlers that do whiskies as single casks and cask strength. There are lots of independent bottlers that do a single cask and then cut it at 50 and bottle it at 50, or they'll bottle it at 46 because that's their standard. All of their single casks are bottled at 46. We don't do that. We think the bottling strength is the correct drinking strength, so we'll cut that down. Sometimes it will be cask strength, sometimes it'll be batch strength. And, I think the single cask limits you. That's our philosophy. So this is a 12-year-old Auchroisk. It's a batch of 2,400. So that obviously isn't a single cask. But if we had some 14-year-old or some 15-year-old and we splashed that into there, and actually this 12-year-old now tasted a lot better, why wouldn't we do that? So that's our philosophy as an independent bottler. It's about putting, from the parcels of whiskey that we bought, is putting the best liquid into the bottle at the right strength for drinking. I think the lowest we've ever bottled was 40.3, and that was obviously a cask strength because that was like a 37-year-old Bunnahabhain that we'd just rescued. It was just about to become spirit rather than whiskey anymore. The Auchroisk distillery is a modern distillery built in 74 by the people from Justerini and Brooks. It was just built to produce whiskey for blending. It's one of the distilleries that I say there's a workhorse distillery and really hasn't got its own brand at all. It is notoriously difficult to pronounce. And it really did have a very, very short foray into the world of single malts. It was the original singleton. The first singleton was of Auchroisk. Nobody could say it.
It's an amazing whiskey bar in Melbourne. I'm not sure if we get anyone tuning in from Melbourne, Whiskey and Almond. And they actually had a bottle of the original singleton of Auchroisk. So I've been lucky enough to try it. And I'm not sure if they've still got any there, but worth checking in and see if they've got it. If next time you swing by that great whiskey bar when we're allowed to go to bars again.
When they're back, yeah.
You know, bars are still not open there either.
Well, we're allowed to let in 10 people at a time, I think from Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
So 10 people at a time. Unfortunately, that's not enough people for most bars, restaurants, and cafes to actually survive. There's no way they can afford to open the doors for only 10 people. But it's a start, and hopefully we'll start to see a few more opening up before we go stir crazy.
Yeah, that was whiskey and ailment. People asking in the chat there.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard of it and you're a fan of whiskey, then
it's going to change your life.
Yeah, it's going to change your life if you go there. Now, Melbourne really has some fabulous whiskey bars. Yes, there's some amazing geekery there, but these guys just know how to do it, and pretty serious about it. But also, they're fun places to go. Elysian, Boilermaker House, Whiskey and Ailment, probably some of the top whiskey bars in the country.
So yeah, I mean the Auchroisk down a little skinny road from from Rothers down to Keith, as I was just distillery hunt. I was killing time basically before I flew home in the evening, and I was stuck in Speyside. I had a car, so I thought it was a cold winter's November afternoon, and so I only had until like 3:30. So I was just zooming around, stumbling over distilleries, and I stumbled over this one and thought, bloody hell, this is beautiful. What on earth have we got a label like this for? It is a beautiful modern looking distillery, almost cathedral-like in the middle of this Speyside countryside. So I think our label's a little unfair. It's a heavier character from that Dufftown that you've got there, rapid mashing, quick fermentation, and the wash stills. So we get a cloudy wort, because it's a very, very quick fermentation, and they rapid boil, so some of the solids go over and gets that more robust flavour. I mean, you can see the colour of this is quite light, because everyone asks, nearly every whiskey geek asks me, what cask it's been in? I always reply, the finest oak, just like every marketing person will tell you, always the finest oak, hand-selected casks. My ass. I mean, it really does annoy me when I see this marketing spiel on about the finest oak casks. What a load of bollocks. I mean, if you understand just how many casks the Scottish whiskey industry, just Scotland alone, needs. I know they don't use virgin oak, so that's completely different to America, although they use a few. I worked it out on the 2017. I've got a motto as an ex-engineer. If in doubt, create a spreadsheet. That is my motto. And I worked out that they need around 5 million casks a year at the current production rates. And if you think they know what that cask, anything about that cask, very few of them do. So yeah, finest oak. Refill casks, refill bourbon casks, refill hoggy is the norm. You know, sherry casks are bloody expensive compared to bourbon casks. So yeah, Auchroisk was first bottled as a single malt in '86, and the first to carry the prefix Singleton, as I mentioned earlier. So that's where it hails from. It's a long, long time ago. That prefix now attached to the single malts from Glenord, Glendullan, and Dufftown, where we started this morning. It is one of those whiskies that's highly regarded by writers and judges in its time. It's never made that leap from a cult amongst the whiskey geeks to a major brand, probably because nobody can say it. And it's a name that really means ford over the Red Stream, because they were out looking for a water source. There were people looking for a water source to build a new distillery, the J&B people, and that's where they found this Red Stream, and that's where the distillery sits today. Our label, which is on the next page, is why? Why? I have no idea. Because we wanted to. A zombie apocalypse, because we had nothing interesting to say about the distillery. And, you know, when I stumbled upon it and saw it, I thought, well, yeah, I think we could turn this into our label into like the Disney castle, because that's what it looks like in the middle of. It looks completely out of place. Have you been there, Simon?
No, I've not been there.
it just looks completely out of place in the Speyside countryside. Every other distillery you're driving past is made out of that grey granite. It looks very traditional. It's got the ventilator, the Deutsch ventilator over the kilns. Every other one that you're driving, you start off at Speyburn, and the next one you come to will be Glentockers, but in between there's this Auchroisk that's white with pointy roofs, and I really think it should have been a Disney. I think we had an opportunity to put a Disney castle on there.
Yeah, no, Disneyland whiskey, that'd be great.
And some of those employees, although that wasn't supposed to be anyone recognizable on there, there are a few people that I think used to work for us or don't. But great whiskey, and that is our Auchroisk. I've got tasting notes on there. I've got a bottle of it here as well. Let's have a wee sip of that as well. I wasn't going to sip this morning. I've got another one to do tonight. I've got another whiskey tasting tonight, Simon.
Oh, you do? You're a busy man.
7:30 tonight. Yeah. Another Zoom call tonight.
Well,
that'll be your morning, so you can wake up for that.
I'll wake up for your one, sure.
There's a bit of interesting comments coming through the chat there, just on the comparison between the Dufftown to the Auchroisk, and saying that the Dufftown, to some taste, is a lot more flavorful, I guess, or more.
I'm definitely getting more like top notes from the Dufftown. Like there's a lot more fruit.
A lighter.
Yeah. That that Auchroisk is not a pretty whiskey, but that's where I quite like it. It's like the label. It's a little bit ugly.
It's a little raw.
Yeah, but I actually really enjoy it. I know Scotty is a fan of this. We got to try it just last weekend.
Yeah.
And this was his pick of the bunch in the lineup we did. I'm quite enamored by it, and it's great because you don't really get to see a lot of Auchroisk, and that's one of the advantages of an independent bottler like Boutique, or a lot of the other good independent bottlers out there, is you get to try these workhorse distilleries.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the oiliness. It's got a much heavier oiliness to the whiskey than compared to the Dufftown, which is really light and caresses the tongue, whereas the Auchroisk is a little bit more aggressive, and I do like it. Yeah. But it is, both of these, in fact, all three of these, the first three that we've had, is very, very much distillery character rather than influence of the wood, because it's all refill bourbon casks, or maybe a little bit of first fill in the Irish one, but it is about refill bourbon. So you're getting all of the distillery character rather than the wood character, certainly at this age as well.
What do you make, Dave, of the obsession with sherry casks and sherry bombs at the moment?
I've never been a huge. You go through phases. I think with your whiskey journey, the whiskey that turned me on to whiskey was a Kalila. So the heavily peated. The first whiskey that I bought was a Lafroig. And I do like a heavily peated whiskey. In fact, last night I had some of our Aerolite Lindsay with me tea. It was I've forgotten all about it. It was, that's really good with smoked salmon sandwiches. It was just a perfect whiskey. But I do like these lighter styles of whiskey today. Big sherry monsters, I've been through them, but today they don't really float my boat unless it's beautifully balanced. I think the balance has got to be right for a big sherry monster, and some distilleries do it right, and some I don't think they do. I also think depends where you stick it in a lineup. If you're just going straight into it, it doesn't do it for me. But if you're building up to it in a tasting lineup, things can work very differently.
Well, thank you for that, Dave. I think what we might do now is have a quick break and play a game. So charge your glasses with your favorite of the first three drams so far, and then we're going to load up a little game here. And this is for a giveaway. So we'll send out to the winner this bottle of Able Force Cherry Brandy. It's going to really make your Manhattan sing.
Makes a
A
great
little
Manhattan.
splash of that in there. I actually just let you into a dirty little secret. I quite enjoy the cherry brandy just with cola, to be honest. Makes the best cherry cola you've
Is that
had.
right?
But yeah.
Oh, I've not tried that. No.
Oh, it's
Okay,
worth a go.
The bottle of cherry brandy that I'm using from Aberforth has been it's one of the first ever batches. So built, made in 2013. It's got on there, and it's been in the bottom of my cupboard since then. It was only when Josh said, "Just put a splash of cherry brandy in your Manhattan; it will lift it." And that's what I've been doing every time now. So are you ready to play a game? Because I'm driving now, aren't I?
Yes, yeah. Do you want to present, Dave?
So I'm going to share my screen. It's that one there. Screen 2, yeah. Okay.
You guys can't bet on my t-shirt, okay?
I'm still clothing at the moment.
So you should all be able to see the game here. It is called White Dog. We had the Uncorked Cowboy for this, or Corn Dog. Can you hear my banjo?
Yes.
That was my banjo.
We can hear your banjo.
Okay, that was my bit of banjo. So there's a number of distilleries here. If it's real, it's a white dog. And if it's something I've made out, it's a corn dog. Simple as that. So there's a number of distilleries. There are small American distilleries, craft distilleries, most of these are making single malts. So if you think it's real, you shout white dog, or you type white dog in the comments. And if you think it's something I've made up, you write corn dog. It's very, very simple.
So,
and there's
just so you know, so the way we're going to judge this will be in the Zoom chat. So Joey's going to make record of who types in the correct answer first. And the person with the most first correct answers will win the cherry brandy. We will also try and do a second, a third, and maybe a fourth prize there. That'll be a Boutique sticker book. And you'll also get your little Boutique badge there as well. Right.
So are you ready for white dog, corn dog? So when I did this the first time, I put on my cowboy hat and did the Uncorked Cowboy, but that's just something stupid we do at lunchtime. So here we go. It's the first one. I'm going to start the clock. I hope. Oh, come on, play for me. It's not playing. I'm going to have to go and get my banjo then. It's Seven Stills Distillery. Why won't it play?
We've had lots of answers streaming in.
Yeah, people were at the ready for that one.
I've gone back. Seven Stills, yeah, I did give the answer already. Sorry, I'm trying to get it to play and it's not doing it. It's not playing today. I have no idea why.
Yeah, we had some quick answers in there straight out of the gate. I'm not sure you're going to have time to play any music anyway at this rate.
It is it's not even playing. So yeah, it is indeed a white dog. I can't see the comments at the moment. It's from San Francisco, California, founded in 2013, and they're making whiskey from craft beers. Okay, round 2.
Yep, but make note of the first person to get the correct answer. So we had people straight out of the gate there. Within seconds of that going up. Someone said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Some people were lazy and just typed whites.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We're just trying whoever got there first.
Yeah, we've got there first.
Cool.
But maybe put second and third as well.
Number 2.
Yeah, well done. Oh, there's already answers already coming in.
Dear Hammer.
Dear Hammer.
Dear Hammer.
We'll give you another couple of seconds if you haven't done it.
If it's real, or is it
scroll
not?
up.
I think it's from 720.
Yeah.
Have we got it? You got some answers coming in?
Yep. We've had lots of answers come in. What's the answer, Dave?
The answer is, of course, it's a white dog from Colorado, founded in 2000. It is the I think it's the highest distillery. They're 2.5 clicks up in the air. Zero humidity up there. And so that's interesting about what will happen to their matured whiskey. But I haven't tried any, but it's pretty interesting. I wouldn't mind getting hold of some.
Yeah, so well done. Got there right. The white dog. So a
lot
of corn dogs for that.
A
lot of corn dogs, but it is a white dog. So I think the first one was the Bex.
Yep. And
then Marco. And then Monica. Well done. Right.
It is.
So are you ready for the next one? Let's count it in, Dave.
Here it is. It's coming in. The Sugar Shack Distillery. And none of these sounds will work. I should go and get it. Yeah, it's just playing a little riff. Can I get it? Can I get it? Maybe can I play it on my phone? One moment. Sugar Shack Distillery, is it real or is it something I made up?
Actually, we only have one white dog in this whole answer list here.
Everyone else is thinking it's corn or real. What are they thinking? What are we thinking?
We got a lot of corn dogs here, Dave.
Have we?
Yeah.
The answer is, of course, yes, it is
the
corn dog. Yeah, it is. It is. So I made it up. There is a Sugar House Distillery. It does exist in Salt Lake City in Utah. Right. Will this work?
So, Whiskey is my jam, Amrith, and Ollie Meeks take out the top 3 for that one.
Okay. Oh, that was a riff.
Okay, there's it. I've got it on the phone. We're going to find the microphone. I need to plug it into the big speaker, don't I?
We can hear that. We can hear that.
You can hear it.
Right, let's count in the next one.
Okay.
We ready, folks? 3, 2, 1.
Is it real?
The Northlands Distillery.
Or is it made up?
Oh, yeah, very split.
That's it. Time's up. It's a corn dog. I made this one up. I just took it as a Westland distillery. It does exist in Seattle, Washington, but the Northland Distillery doesn't.
Ollie Meeks again.
Okay. Eyes down looking.
Shasta.
On Holio.
Eyes down looking. The next one is GOPHER Whiskey Company. The GOPHER Whiskey Company. I'll start the clock.
Oh, there it is. There it is. All right, did you get it?
Whiskey.
A lot of white dogs this time. A couple of corn
I'm
dogs.
going for a whiskey myself.
Oh,
it is corn dog. Go for whiskey.
Okay.
Phil Brooks.
Phil Brooks.
Because it made me laugh. I'm going to go for
Marco.
whiskey.
Okay.
Then Johnny Edwards.
Anyone going for whiskey?
How many? Have we got a few more, Dave?
Yeah, we've got a few more.
Okay.
I've got, quite a few. I think I did
we're warming up
10
now.
in here. Fainting Goat Spirits. I'm starting the clock. Is it a white dog or is it a corn dog?
Thinking this is real.
It certainly is.
Here we go. White dog is right.
Founded in 2015 and started making single malt just last year.
Excellent.
Fainting Goat Spirits. Yeah, I caught Sam on that one. One more. Next one coming up.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? It is the Copper Beaver Distillery. The Copper Beaver Distillery. I like the sound of this one. The Copper Beaver.
The Copper Beaver. Okay.
Corn white. Oh, it's down the middle.
Down the middle again. This is what we like. Nah, of course it's a bloody corn dog. I made that up. You're thinking of the Copper Fox Distillery in Sperryville. It's a lot of old.
Which is starting to get Copper Fox over here. So Copper Fox is available in Australia just. Brought in by a new distributor importer in Western Australia. NTD Spirits.
Yeah, right.
ND.
So here is your next White Dog Corn Dog conundrum. It is Grey Heron Spirits. The Grey Heron Spirits.
Wait. One corn dog.
That's good. I like it split. It is another one I made up. It's a corn dog.
So we had, let me have
one. It's a little sneaky one there.
Phil Brooks.
Phil Brooks.
Well done.
I made it up.
Spotted.
I made it up. It was the Black Heron Distillery in Washington. I just changed it to Grey. And I even spelt Grey the American way just to fool you. Have I got another one? Let's have a look. The Rough Stock Distillery. The Rough Stock Distillery. Is it real? Is it a white dog?
Or is it a
Or
corn
is it something
dog?
I made up? It's a corn dog. Yeehaw! It's the uncorked cowboy. Yeah. This one is real. Yeah, this one is real. It is a white dog. It's in Montana. We're going back to Montana. Bit of Frank Zappa there for you. Founded in 2015, and they started making single malt. Say again last year. I think that might be a copy and paste, because this is not the one I created, but someone boutiqued it with our label graphics, which look great, I must admit. Is there another one? The Bull Run Distillery. The Bull Run Distillery. Is it real? Or is it bollocks? What? Corn dog.
Wait. One corn, two corn.
Hey, it is real. Yeah, the Bull Run Distillery is in Portland, Oregon, founded in 2011. Their main focus is 100% Oregon single malt, which is kind of cool because they're doing things their way.
Close.
We might need to get you, Joey, on doing a bit of math.
I think I might need to start
later. Just do a bit of a waiting schedule on that.
What we might do is like a 3-2-1, like that.
Yeah. What you need is a spreadsheet.
Right, exactly.
Scott would have a spreadsheet, to be fair.
That is the end of the
excellent
quiz.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll let Joey add up the scores there, and we'll get back to you towards the end of the tasting about who the winner is and who are getting the runner-up sticker book and badge prizes as well. But thank you for playing. So
these are the silly games that we play on our podcast with our guests. The Uncorked Whisky Sessions is our podcast, and we play silly games like this, which is like a yes/no game. But we also play anagrams, where we have to, we make anagrams out of distilleries. I think we played anagrams a little while ago with you, didn't we?
Yeah, we did last time.
Some anagrams.
And I've got the slide here for the Uncorked Whisky Sessions.
And we play lots of silly things on our podcast. We've got some silly games coming up on our big World Whisky Summit, where we're going to get all of our guests to be playing along with us, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, you can find our podcast on all of your favorite streaming services, Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you use. But, we always take a bit of fun in our podcast. It's a bit geeky, but we drink a lot of whiskey and our mouths get a bit looser by the end of the session. A lot of fun.
Dave,
you ready for another
boutique afternoon tea as well?
We are. We're still doing it at the moment. We may have to stop because one of the team is on holiday, and John puts together. Although I was doing all of these games on bits of paper like this beforehand, when we were doing anagrams, Pong Picker. But now they're all being sort of brandified as we've been doing it every day.
Right.
But John is going away on holiday, and I don't know if we're going to have enough time to create the content that we need to do it daily. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a big distraction to go online every day and play something silly because we have to create them. So I'm not sure if we can do that next week. I think we might have a little bit of time off.
Well, those of you that haven't checked it out yet, at 11 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, you'll be able to go on to Instagram and Instagram Live rather, and see Sam Simmons, Dr. Whisky, and Dave shooting the shit about whiskey and having a good time. So it's definitely worth tuning into if you're still up at that time. Pour yourself a nightcap and enjoy.
Yeah, we generally stop for a cup of tea, just to take a break during the day because nothing's going on really, rather than everything's going on. So we're just lots of people confused at home of what day it is, us mostly. So you're ready for our fourth whiskey of the evening. It is an English whiskey. It's our first ever batch from the Costswolds distillery. 3-year-old. 1,785 bottles, 50.4% ABV. English whiskey, cracky. Yeah, there wasn't anything in England making whiskey. There is a little bit of history at the end of the 18th century when Alfred Bernard did his tour around Britain, the United Kingdom. He noted that there were 10 distilleries in the UK, in England at that time, and 4 of notable, most of them were making neutral grain spirits or sort of industrial alcohol, but there were 4 distilleries listed that were making whiskey, and they'd all disappeared. It was Cooper King, yes it was. Pong Picker, yes you did right. Another English whiskey. There were just 4 distilleries, 2 in Liverpool, 1 in Bristol, 1 in London, and there are no records of these distilleries. There's no pictures. There's nothing left of it. But the first whiskey distillery came along in England in 2006, the English Whiskey Company, and we bottled 2 batches of them. And then there's a kind of big gap as they were sort of leading the charge of English whiskey, and now there is a multitude of distilleries. I think at the last count, 24 distilleries in England now making whiskey. Cotswolds being the next generation, really, after the first wave of the single distillery. And the Cotswolds and the Lakes Distillery came online about the same time. I think the Cotswolds were September and the Lakes came online on the November. And I think about production of whiskey and gin started in 2014. So quite some time after the English distillery really kicked off everything. The distillery was set up with guidance from renowned legends Harry Coburn, former distillery manager at Bowmore, Dr. Jim Swan, fondly known as the Einstein of whiskey, for his knowledge on science and distillation and maturation. Something that I think Jim Swan started was the shaved and recharred casks. Something that is, Jim Swan you can put into most of the New World distilleries. He's had an influence in there, from Taiwan to the English distilleries to globally, basically. The distillery is committed to using local barley. It is a small distillery, but it has quite a large capacity. The other thing that's unique about it is although they can't do their own maltings, they use one of the oldest maltings in England, which is not too far from them in Warminster, and it is all floor malted barley. 100% of the malt there is traditionally floor malted. The malt is milled and mashed at the distillery, and 2 strains of dried yeast are using for fermentation. So they have been playing with fermentation to change flavors rather than, it's not about yield, it's about flavor. And that's something that a lot of these smaller craft distilleries are really looking at to distinguish themselves against, they're not trying to be Scotch, they're trying to be their own brand of whiskey, their own style. They use a very long fermentation to allow those fruity flavors to come in. Again, one of the Dr. Jim Swan's master strokes, and it gives the Numex spirit is absolutely delicious. You can drink it straight off the still. It is just so well balanced. It is really pretty whiskey. This one, say, is a 3-year-old. About our label. Yeah, we based our label on sort of a vintage poster. A little village called Castle Combe is where we've taken the inspiration from. Cotswolds, sandstone cottages, very, very pretty. It is sort of an area of outstanding natural beauty, as well as all of the historical cottages, and everything has to fit in there. Dan had a big input into this, and he wanted the swan to be on the label, and the swan features on a couple of our labels because of Dr. Jim Swan. I think our Israeli label has a swan on it because he was part of that distillery setup as well, the Milk and Honey. On here we've got Dan sitting in his Land Rover, the company Land Rover, on the bridge. I mean, this distillery is in the middle of nowhere. It's a bugger to find down a little skinny road. You wouldn't know it was a distillery. It's little tiny villages there. And we put I don't know if you get Midsummer Murders in Australia, and we've turned it into a Midsummer Murders sort of feel. And there is a little body here hiding under the bushes. And there's a big handgun laying down the side of it. And so there's a Midsummer Murders sort of feel going on to it. Dan loves this label because to him, that dead body is the local. Everyone in the village loves what Dan has done. Dan's an American, and he's gone and fitted into a little Cotswolds village that's, just like parts of Scotland where they're always called incomers or outsiders. Most people have accepted Dan. A lot of the villagers come down and help them bottle the gin that they do down there. They have, volunteered bottlers. But there's always one neighbour, local, who complains about everything in the village. He's the one who puts his complaints up, letters of complaints. So that dead body on the label is what Dan likes to think is, that's what we've done to that person, that villager. That's a little secret. That's where, he just looked, that's where it is. Yeah, the dead body, it must be him. Yeah. So that's his feeling on that. There's always someone in the village who complains about everything. I live in a little village, and it's the same. You go on the local village Facebook page, and there's always someone complaining about something, whether it's kids riding their bikes on the pavement or, just kids. So that's the label. It's a really pretty label. I like this label a lot.
Dave, we had a question here. A lot of colour for a 3-year-old.
Aye.
Anything added? Also, small casks used to age.
Now this is red wine barriques. So yes, it's a 3-year-old out of a red wine barrique. Yeah, a lot of colour. No, there's everything that we do is natural colour. We don't add any colour to our whiskies, and I know the Cotswolds don't either. They do use a lot of shave recharred casks, so that was the masterstroke of Dr. Jim Swan, getting, rather than just getting refill bourbon casks, old casks, and reusing them, actually recharring them and rejuvenating cask effectively. I know Cavalan did it, or still do it, and this is something that Dr. Jim Swan really introduced to the industry. So this is red wine barriques. We've cut this down at 50.4% because at 60 something it was just too fierce, and now I think this is beautifully balanced.
Really well.
Even at 50%, it doesn't need any water. Really fruity.
I like that sweet pineapple note in there, actually.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So good.
It's definitely that citric note as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Orange peel kind of thing.
So, they did release one very, very similar to this themselves, but they bottled it at cask strength. It was a single cask, or I think it was a single cask, and it was almost identical. But they preferred it our one because it was at the right drinking strength. They were having, they bottled it because they want their founders or their supporters wanted something at cask strength. But yeah, this is really lovely.
Do you think that some producers and bottlers are doing themselves a disservice by just going, no, we have to bottle at cask strength? There seems to be a bit of an obsession with cask strength, and particularly in Australia and the New World, we have ABVs climbing into the high 60s. I have seen Australian whiskies, some very good ones actually, that have been climbing into the 70s.
Wow. That's, yeah, it depends on the balance. I mean, if you're just going to get all alcohol burn, why drink it? Yeah. Some whiskies work well at cask. SMWS, for example, I used to spend a lot of time down the SMWS, and I still, if I can get down there on a Saturday afternoon and meet up with my buddies, I like doing that with the first Friday, the first month of the month releases. But, a lot of these cask strength whiskies aren't balanced, and you have to sit there and put the water in. And then by the time you've got it just right, you've finished it. How did I do that? Oh, and it's gone to the next one, and I'm not a huge fan of cask strength because it's all alcohol. And then I have to mess around and get it right. I think it's an easy way out, isn't it, to bottle it at cask strength? You don't have to do anything. Just chuck it in. And, they pick the cask. I mean, I don't think they're just picking any old cask and bottling, but it is an easy way out of bottling something. Yeah, this is a great cask, let's bottle it. But, they're tasting. If you're tasting a cask, if you're doing cask samples, you don't taste it at cask strength or even nose it at cask strength. You're taking it down to 20% ABV. And that's where you're tasting if it's a good cask to bottle or not. So I think by getting it at the right bottling strength is crucial.
Yeah.
I think it's much nicer to have it poured out ready to drink.
There's been quite a few comments coming through about some Australian producers. And look, and I love cask strength whiskey as well. It is exciting, but I don't necessarily believe in cask strength for cask strength's sake. If a producer is confident about this is the right strength to drink the whiskey, going to bottle something at that, I'm more than happy to give that a go at that strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we see from a retail side quite often as well is it can be quite a defining factor to maybe someone that isn't necessarily as well versed in whiskies. But that term can maybe make or break their decision immediately. Whether it be cask strength 50% or cask strength 70%, already that kind of I don't want cask strength.
I mean, it's still, from my understanding, Dave, a relatively new concept, cask strength. Wasn't until bottlers in the 60s and 70s, I think Summeroli, the first one to really start doing cask strength bottlings, wasn't really around before that.
Probably not, no.
Yeah. I
mean, even when the Scotch were drinking whiskey before it came out, I mean, they weren't drinking it straight off the still. They were mixing it with stuff. I mean, just like, moonshine was never drunk straight off the still in America as moonshine. It was mixed with fruit juices. Yeah. They never drank it straight off the still at 60-something%. But hey, I like it around that. Yeah, that 46 to 50 seems to work.
Yeah.
But, just nailing it at 46 every time, the whiskey might shine a little bit better. If we took this down at 50, this 50.4 down at 46, it might have gone a bit flat. I don't know. I mean, we don't do anything scientific. Basically, we get the cask samples and we pour them in glasses, and then we start adding water, and then we taste it and think, yeah, that one's best. I like it here. I like it there. And that's the tasting panels palettes that are coming through here of where we want to bottle it. And to be honest, I think I don't spend a lot of time in the office, so I don't get to do that as often as I'd like to, but I don't think we get it wrong. For me, every time it's right. It tastes right. Yeah. So there's very, very few boutique bottlings that I've had to add water. There's an Indian whiskey that we produced. We have Paul John whiskey that we've done a couple of times. I find it does work. We bottled it like 51, 50, 52. And I find that works with just a little drop of water, and it really does become a lot more floral and fruity. But everything else,
it's a big whiskey.
It is a big whiskey, yeah.
Yeah.
It is a big whiskey because of the barley that they use. It's completely different to everything that you've got here. 2 to 6 row barley, very, very different.
Well, shall we pour ourselves a little dram of the last whiskey, a bourbon?
It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it? It would be rude not to.
I'm really intrigued to find out more from you about this bottling. I haven't had the pleasure of trying this before yet, so quite excited.
This is our big. We bought a shit ton of this. I mean, 8,376 bottles. I don't know how we got away with that. This bourbon is older than me. I don't like you at all. I really don't like you.
There you go.
You get to a certain age, you're trying to find whiskies older than me. It's very difficult or prohibitively expensive. I've got children older than this whiskey. Anyway, so this is a 24-year-old bourbon, 48%. Now, I'm not sure why that's 48%, if that's because that's what it was left at. We bought a lot of it. It was 24 years old, 12 years in America, and 12 years continental age is what I understand.
Right, that's unusual.
So we found it over here and bought it over here. We're not able to name this distillery, and I really seriously do not know what distillery it is, but I've got a rough idea. There are no clues on this label, despite everybody looking at it, certainly over here, and making assumptions. Because there are some things on the label or that people think those that bottle shape looks like a 4 roses sort of bottling, and these 4 crop circles look like they could be roses. Is it 4 roses? And then there's these dead birds here, and are they old crows?
Old crow?
Are they old crows? There's all of this, and all of this was absolutely by accident. We didn't put any red herrings in there at all. So this is a 24-year-old bourbon, say 12 years continental aged, I understand. But bourbon has been distilled since the 18th century, and the term of bourbon really first came into whiskey, can be traced back to 1820, and it was Bourbon County, basically. There was a Bourbon County, and it's been in consistent use since the 1870s. There was an advert since the I was doing some research a little while ago on this and found a copy of this paper advert for bourbon whiskey, Bourbon County whiskey. And although bourbon may be made anywhere in the United States, it is strongly associated with South American South and Kentucky in particular. Kentucky was, as the settlers in America came down from sort of the East Coast and down through the Cumberland Gap and into, it was like heaven, where, the plains of Kentucky was like heaven to these settlers after the sort of the rough area that they'd had from coming down on the East Coast and the wilderness. Everything grew, but rye didn't grow, barley didn't grow, and corn did. And this is where the first records of corn being distilled was actually in Virginia in 1610, which is, it's remarkable when you start thinking about Scottish whiskey history and then tying it to, and even Irish whiskey history, and then tying it to American. This industry of whiskey making grew up in parallel. It's just that we didn't really hear about American whiskey too much, and Prohibition really did kill it off. So bourbon was recognized in 1964 by the United States Congress as a distinctive product of the United States. So you cannot make bourbon anywhere else in the world. You can make bourbon style whiskey anywhere else in the world, but you cannot make bourbon in England. You can make corn whiskey and do exactly the same. But bourbon in the United States must have a mash bill of at least 51% corn, stored in a new container of charred oak. So all of these real regulations started being tied in just before Prohibition. And then post-Prohibition, it was really started to come into law. And then in 1964, it was sort of enshrined in the rules have been tightening up ever since Prohibition. So distilled at no more than 80% ABV, new oak, virgin oak, Bourbon has a no minimum specified duration. So you can make new make spirit, pour it into a virgin oak cask, and then pour it straight out and bottle it, and it'll be called bourbon. The youngest whiskey that we've ever bottled is an 11-month-old bourbon, an 11-month-old rye from Distillery 291 in Colorado. We have 1-year-old bourbons. We have 1-year-old ryes. Because we can call it a rye, we can call it a bourbon, but we cannot call it a whiskey in the UK until it's 3 years old. So we have that boutique bourbon company and that boutique rye company because we can't call it whiskey.
Well, the boutique rye that I made that cocktail with, it's only a 2-year-old, which we can legally call a whiskey in Australia, but not in the UK. So it doesn't say whiskey anywhere in the bottle, so it can be sold in the UK, although we could have whiskey on the bottle in Australia.
Yep. If you look at the big distilleries in America and where this could be, and look for turmoil, always look for turmoil, always look for problems. You know, when you, I don't know if you've seen our Isla number 2. I think we had that a little while ago, didn't we?
Yes. Virtual tasting number 1. We did that one.
You always look for issues of when this was distilled and what could have happened. And you look for, so there was a big fire at a distillery a little while ago. 96, there was a big fire and a lot of whiskey was lost. A lot of whiskey was moved. And I got a feeling I think this was distilled in 94. But I think it was moved out of an area when a distillery basically disappeared, Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill fires were in 96, you're dead right. And I think it possibly could be Heaven Hill. I really don't know, but you look for turmoil. Look for things that have gone wrong. Heaven Hill, who's that owned by now? Is that Diageo? No, Dickel's owned by Diageo. But, you know, we wouldn't be able to name it. And, it's a strong possibility to me. It's Heaven Hill. But so many people think it's Four Roses because there's so much going on in this label. Let's have a look at, I did write it all down, what's on this label. I'm just going to find it on my file here. Bear with me 1 minute. So yeah, there is Area 51 is what we've got. Nothing to see here, and there's lots of little US mysteries. Basically, we just covered it in American mysteries. So how many can you spot in Area 51? So crop circles started in the States, and one of them looks remarkably, we tried to make that look like a boutique bottle, but we put the lump on there a bit too big, and everyone thinks it's a Four Roses bottle. And say the 4 crop circles around, so they just reinforce that to them, and they're convinced it's a Four Roses. It's just a happy accident. There is someone's just said there's Bigfoot, absolutely. And there's a little aeroplane running across the top there that represents aviation pioneer and author Amelia Earhart, who mysteriously disappeared somewhere over the Central Pacific Ocean near Howland Island during an attempt to make a circumnavigational flight of the globe in 1937. The Black Dahlia, that black ball there, is the Black Dahlia, represents the mysterious death of Elizabeth Short, an American woman who was found murdered in LA, California. Her case became highly publicized due to the graphic nature of the crime, and she later became known as the Black Dahlia. There are mysterious dead birds, which a lot of people think are old crows. That was something, American mysteries, dig into it. Old crows, another clue or a red herring. Oh, and there's an alien hiding behind Area 51 sign. Yeah, it's just, we tried to fill the label with as many American mysteries, and if you Google American mysteries, nearly all of them will come up, including the Black Dahlia. But there's no clues. There's no red herrings. It was just a load of American mysteries that people want to read into because they want to fight. Everyone wants to know exactly what it is, but does it really matter? It's a 24-year-old bourbon. I thought it was going to be pretty woody, but it's not. I think that continental aging has slowed down the maturation, because this would have been in virgin oak. And, you know, we've got we released a 14-year-old Tennessee whiskey, which I thought would have been too old for, you know, virgin oak, but it's absolutely delicious. We're not allowed to name that, but there were only 2 distilleries in Tennessee that really make Tennessee whiskey. And one spells it with an E and one spells it without an E. Simple as that. So it's not Jack Daniels. You know, the only turmoil I can see of around this time where whiskey could go away would be Heaven Hill. And I don't know what the mash bill was of Heaven Hill at that time. I really don't, but it's a bourbon, so it'll be, you know, over 51% corn. I don't know what Heaven Hill were doing around that time. I really don't. But yeah, I don't know. Seriously, I do not know what the distillery is, but when you look for turmoil, you know, look for incidences in history, if that's where stuff gets moved, goes missing. Yeah, lots of things to play with, but it could be anywhere. It could be Four Roses, and we put those Four Roses on there just to mess everybody's heads in.
Lots of comments coming in. What have we got?
Yeah, it could have been re-racked. I don't know if it's been re-racked.
Yeah. Number 4 is the winner. So a big fan there of the Cotswolds. That Cotswolds was sensational. Youngest whiskey on the table. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that Irish we started with. You do have it in front of you, well worth going back to. So much cereal and very creamy as well. So much fruit.
I do love the Irish whiskies that we've had.
Well,
any of that bourbon coming over to you?
We don't have any of that bourbon over here in Oz at the moment. In saying that, I believe we still have some available for export in the UK. So
right. Send it that way.
I probably need to start a discussion with that distributor over here and see if we can bring some over. There was still some left last time I looked. So, I mean, it's a big outturn for us. And a lot of other people would advertise 8,000 bottles as being highly limited release. I mean, outside of Australia, we've got tiny outturns. For us, that's huge. And at 24, how do we get that much 24-year-old? I can't understand.
Well, because it had been, I just feel that it's a stock of whiskey that's been moved because of an incident, and then may have been written off. I don't know, I'm making stories up. May have been written off under insurance, or maybe have been damaged stock and was re-racked, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was re-racked before it was shipped here. Maybe it was shipped across in bulk. And then re-racked here. Maybe they were damaged casks and they were tankered and they couldn't call it and they didn't know what to do with it. I don't know. I don't know, but it is a 24-year-old and it's been 24 years in wood. So maybe it was 2 years out of wood. I don't know. No idea.
I mean, for a 24-year-old, I mean, it's still very lively for virgin oak.
Yeah, a lot of that sweetness coming through.
Yeah, it's not over oaked. And it's very rare that you find, you know, a bourbon this old that's that well balanced. Couple of questions here about the Irish. How about the Irish? Any stock? We have batch 3 currently in Australia you can get, which is a 13-year-old. So we don't have batch 4 currently available, though there might be some batch 4 still in the UK as well.
They're pretty similar.
Shirt, those Simons. See, I don't get a vote. Okay. Yeah, I do. It's my favorite. I keep saying this about a number of labels. Every time I look at a bottle, I go, "This is my new favorite label." But
get a shirt.
The Irish, I'm definitely am fond of. Irish backgrounds a long way back.
The batch 3 that Simon was talking about is the My Lovely Horse label. Yes, indeed.
Yes, yeah.
It's a 13-year-old. I mean, all of them have been equally delicious. If you see a batch one, it's a 24-year-old. It is absolutely stunning, but it disappeared far too quickly for my liking. I never got hold of one. But everything else has been around the 13, 14, 15-year-old. We did a 15-year-old exclusive for the States. Yeah, it's equally as good as what we've had with the 14-year-old and the 13-year-old. They've all been stunning whiskies. Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly concur. Well, brings us towards the official end of the tasting, but we still have a winner and runners-up to announce. So there was one person who stretched into first place, and then we have a second equal. Joey, I'll let you make the announcement.
So with a tie second or tie second and third, Phil Brooks and Johnny Edwards both tied together with 8 points. And then actually I might have been, just going back over now, it was actually on the last question that Whiskey Is My Jam came through and took out the win there with 11 points. So we'll get in touch with us for your bottle.
Yeah, so yeah, please get in touch with the store, and we'll organise this bottle of cherry brandy coming out to you. You'll also get these boutique stickers, which are fantastic. Your kids can put them on their school books or laptops, and don't tell them it's not whiskey. The fun for anybody. Put it on your laptop. We've got a little whiskey badge, boutique whiskey badge coming out to you, and also Phil and Johnny, you'll get both the sticker book and the badge coming out to you as well. Yeah, thanks a lot for playing. Wooden Spoon, who got the, well, I don't know if we recorded who got the lowest. Who got everyone wrong?
I mean, special mentions go to Amrith, Ollie and Meigs, Marco Greza and Dennis as well, who weren't too far out. Shasta, I know has been quite active in the comments there, got 1 point. That's about it. Yeah.
I mean, you had to be real quick to get in there.
I think people were just firing in blind at some points there. But...
I think someone just had White Dog copy paste and just keep on hitting paste every time it came up.
50-50 chance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Got to be in it to win it.
Thank you again so much for joining us first thing in the morning from the UK.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. It's great having you over here. I look forward to the day that we can actually have you physically out here in Australia and do a bit of a boutique tour. I think would be well received.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd love to do it. But at the moment, we're stuck doing it this way, and I'm happy to do it whenever you want me to come over.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll probably stick around for a little while yet. So if you have any questions, please fire them through, and we'll stop the cast in a little while. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
I'm going to
massive thanks from the Oak Barrel as well. I know that Scott's absolutely adored making all of this happen, and I certainly do as well. So the support keeps coming through, hot and heavy. We're gonna keep doing it.
We've got a question here from Ollie and Megs. When's the next one? Oliver Chat